Hi there, Jonathan Ginsberg here. I want to answer a question about surrendering property, surrendering your house in a Chapter 13. If you decide in the middle of your Chapter 13, and let's say you're 2 years, 3 years, 1 year into it, you decide you can't afford your house, you want to go ahead and surrender it, what does that mean in terms of your Chapter 13? Do you have to stay in your Chapter 13? Is your payment going to change? What actually happens? Well, basically, if you decide to surrender your property, at that point, what I would do is have you in for a sit-down, and we can talk about what the options are. Obviously, one of them would be to convert it to a Chapter 7. If you fit into a Chapter 7, we have to look at the means test, we have to look at your budget, figure out whether or not Chapter 7 was appropriate. But if the main reason you're in Chapter 13 was to stop a foreclosure, and now you're surrendering the house, maybe Chapter 7 is the way to go. And of course, my opinion is, if you can fit into a Chapter 7, that's far superior to a Chapter 13, and then it's over in 3 or 4 months, and you're out of it, and you're done with bankruptcy. So if that works, that's what I would do. You can also stay in your Chapter 13, and there may be other reasons to stay in it. You may have a vehicle you're trying to protect, or wage garnishments you're trying to stop, or something else. Or it could be that your income is too much to fit into a Chapter 7. You've got to be in a Chapter 13. Well, in that case, what we would do is we would stay in the Chapter 13, but we'd look at your budget and say, can we reduce the plan payment? Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. It just depends on the type of debt you have. It depends on the means test numbers. It depends on your expenses. Now, my experience has been that when you surrender property and you find another place to live, it's going to take 2 or 3 or 4 months before your budget becomes more knowable, things settle down. So I probably wouldn't make any big changes for at least 2 or 3 months until we knew for certain what your budget was going to look like. And once we had an idea what the budget was going to look like, then we could look at changing the plan payment. And of course, sometimes it's difficult to reduce it, because if you've gotten rid of your house, you may find that your expenses go down. But sometimes, of course, we can. It just is going to be case by case. But that is really a situation where if you were my client, I would have you come in, we'd really sit down, we'd look at it, we'd redo a complete budget, and we'd basically almost look at the case with a fresh pair of eyes. How do we do this Chapter 13 so that you get the most advantage out of it, it's the least painful for you, but that it still works? So you can certainly stay in the Chapter 13. You can also dismiss your 13, except for very limited circumstances. You can always dismiss a Chapter 13. And I've had cases where if the property can't be saved, my clients say, look, I don't want to be in Chapter 13 anymore. Let's just simply dismiss it voluntarily, and I'll move on down the road. That's certainly an option as well. But the main point here is, don't make any rash decisions. Come in, talk to me, talk to your lawyer. Let's figure out what makes the most sense. Does bankruptcy make sense to stay in it? Should we get out of bankruptcy? Should we convert to a Chapter 7? These are all the things that an experienced attorney will talk to you about and give you some guidance as to how to proceed. So that's the way I approach it when someone says to me, I'm ready to surrender my house in Chapter 13, and what are my options? That's what I would tell them. I hope this has been helpful to you. If you have any questions about Chapter 13 or anything regarding consumer bankruptcy, please don't hesitate to call me. Thanks a lot.